Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another live edition of Mic'd Up Sports, the show that goes in depth with the people who build our sports community. And this is our first chapter of the 2021 book that we are writing. It's New Year's Day for those of you watching live. Happy New Year. Hopefully the start of a better path or a more productive path in 2020. And if you're watching this on demand through our YouTube channel, we're glad you can join us as well. So you've heard the say, new year, new me. Well, how about new year, new podcast? Our guest today is Desiree Ware of Minnetonka girls basketball, also a state champion in track and field, part of the championship 4x200 relay team. The last time we had a state meet in 2019, we didn't have a track meet this year or last year, I should say now, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Hopefully we'll have a track season this year where Desiree can defend her title. In a couple of years, you will see her playing basketball for the Blazers at Alabama-Birmingham. So Desiree, thanks for coming on. I know practices start Monday. The season for some districts will start January 14th. Others will start later. It depends on when schools are allowed to restart, but we'll at least give it the old college try, having a winter sports season. So how excited are you? How nervous are you as we are still navigating this pandemic? And what do you make going into what will be the most unusual of seasons you've ever played?
Right. No, yeah, I'm super excited for the fourth to come around. I haven't played a basketball game, like an actual game, in a long time. And just like playing with my teammates again from the last time we played. So, I'm a little nervous, obviously, just to get back in action, but I'm super excited.
What did you do during the off season and the shortened AAU season? What have you done to stay in shape and get ready to get back out in the court?
Yeah. A ton of conditioning, really. My dad helps me stay in shape and just like keep my skill work going during that time. So if we were able to, find a gym if possible due to the COVID rules, but just trying to maintain what I had and even build off of that, just so I didn't lose everything I gained.
I don't think you've lost that much, if any, once we see you out there. And speaking of your father, I know he does a lot of training. I think he's involved in some AAU programs, but there's a strong lineage of athletics in your family. So I know you've played basketball and track. And what is the rest of your family background, if you don't mind, in terms of sports?
Yeah, no, of course. My brother does basketball and cross country, and then my sister does basketball also. And then both of my parents ran track and played basketball.
So there's a couple more wares I should be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I got Desmond and then my sister Kaden.
All right, so I may have to stick around for a little while. So for you, do you remember the first moment or memory that got you into the sport of basketball and the sport of track?
Honestly, really, it's looking at the photos from my parents, just seeing them, like we'll go through photos and stuff. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. And then obviously just, I don't know, once I kind of like seen a basketball and stuff, I just got into it and I loved it. And same with track too. Just like being able to, my parents like work out with me and stuff too. So that's like also, I'm like, oh, I love it so much. So yeah.
So do you recall the first moment, the first time you suited up in those sports?
Honestly, a couple of years ago. I don't remember the exact age, but it was kind of young. But that time, it's just like you play for your like community, like your city, and then like all your friends play. And I don't know. I just remember the long socks that I used to wear. Like they were very colorful and bright. I wouldn't wear them today, but I did. I remember I still have some in my closet just because. But just like playing for my city and with my close friends, and that's how it all started.
I was going to say, I've covered you a few times over the years when you started at Maranatha, then moved to Minnetonka, and I will say your socks have decreased in length. Although that's not the first thing I look for when I'm scouting teams or players. is their
Yeah.
sock length. So was that just a phase, or do you
I
find
don't
you just
know.
play better
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought they were so
aerodynamically?
cool. They
Okay,
had so many colors.
I was going to say, is there some aerodynamic resistance that led you to switch?
I don't know. Like I still wear them to practice sometimes, just as a little fun joke. My teammates always like, laugh at me, but it's just a little joke we have. But I don't know. I just find them. I used to like. I thought I was super cool in those, so I was like, why not? And then I had to put them away for a couple years. Now I just wear regular. So yeah.
I could see you making the switch for track because it's all about aerodynamics and making yourself as sleek as possible.
Right.
Basketball, less of a concern because you don't have to run around a track.
Right. Yeah. No.
The surface is much smaller. But over time, how did you develop in those sports? And when did you sense that you could follow a similar path the way your parents did?
Yeah. It was really just like seeing myself grow from game to game, from like layups to jump shots to threes, just to like competing. I just think the better the competition it gets, as you grow, the more competitive you start to become. And that's how I just fell in love with the game so much, just competing against like great people and wanting to win.
Now, this is a basketball centric podcast, although we do cover a lot of sports. So I'll start with basketball. I first remember seeing you as an eighth grader at Maranatha Christian Academy up in Brooklyn Park. What led you to start there?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great school. Christian school, it's like very tight and welcoming. And I was like, why not? They had a lot of great teachers there for academic wise, but also I just got to make new friends. I knew some people going in a little bit from the team. So then I was just able to play with them. Um, yeah.
And how long were you at that school?
Uh, 7, 8, 2 years.
Okay, because I'm trying to remember if I saw you on the roster as a seventh grader, and I'm not sure. Maybe if you were like coming off the bench or doing those JV games, but I remember seeing you as an eighth grader.
Mm-hmm.
Jacqueline Jarnett's last season, Kylie Post was there, and Maranatha was writing at the time quite the streak in terms of state tournament appearances that began in their state championship days. The year you played, at least in your eighth grade season, you were no slouch. You averaged 7.6 points per game, got a few steals, got a few assists. What do you remember from that season and making a run to the state tournaments in Class 2A?
Yeah. I mean, really just great leadership from the seniors. They're great players, so I was able to learn from them. Coming off the bench, playing defense, offense, stuff like that. But I was just able to learn like just the little things. And then as I switched high schools, I was able to kind of bring that with me. So I wasn't just coming in like not knowing anything. Like leadership is very important. So I kind of learned that from MCA.
And I understand your father was a coach at Maranatha during the time you were there, and then you made the move to Minnetonka for your ninth grade season. If you don't mind, what led you to make the switch from this small private school in Brooklyn Park to this large 4A school and put yourself in a section where, as you've seen over the years, there's a real tough group of teams with Minnetonka and Chaska and Eden Prairie, Shakopee. It's a gritty group, maybe not the most prestigious with Hopkins being in 6, but usually the team that gets out of Section 2 has to earn it, if you know what I mean.
Right, right. Yeah, no. Definitely Minnetonka academic wise is like one of the best schools. I really learned there, so that was one of the reasons why. Also, Coach Leah Dasovich, she's a great coach. I've known her even before I started to go there. She's very close with my dad and my mom, and she's just an amazing person. So I was like, I want to like be coached by her to be better. And then also, like you were saying, the Lake Conference, like playing against some of the top teams and top players. It just, I was like, why not? I want to compete. So yeah.
What was the biggest transition you had to make going from this private school to a large public school?
Right. Yeah. For me, I think it was just trying to like find myself for the game wise. It's like I was going from, I'm not saying MCA was a bad school how we played. Those people were good too, but just being able to jump from conference to conference, like finding myself how to like lead and stuff was probably the biggest thing I had to do and learn, just because the better competition, the better players. So yeah.
And it's something we have actually seen play out over the last couple of years with De La Salle getting students going in and out as an example. You picked up a former De La Salle player for this year's team. We'll get to that a little later on. But I'd say your jump was the most intriguing because of the changes you had to make, not just from an academic standpoint, but from an athletic perspective. It's one thing to switch schools, and we see that all the time, but you were able to do it and make it work when others might struggle a little bit. As you were saying, it's a huge jump as far as degree of difficulty going from, at the time, the MCAA, now they're in Skyline, where you probably would have the upper hand in most of those games. And now you go to the Lake Conference where you get Hopkins twice a year, you get Eden Prairie twice a year. STMA joined the group last year, and they're always a team in the conversation. And Wyzetta, another team that would probably get to the tournament if they weren't in the same section as Hopkins, because usually those two have to fight for the one spot. That might be overwhelming for other students. You've handled it well enough to get yourself a Division I scholarship in a couple of years. How did you make sure making that jump didn't get to you?
Yeah. Really just using my family as support and also my teammates. Building those relationships with them. I was coming in like not really knowing too many people, so being able to meet those people, during summer workouts and stuff, just to build relationship with them, so I was able to connect with them. So I wasn't felt like I was alone going into this. Because I mean, to win, you gotta be a team, so that was huge. Coaching staff, definitely, I was able to lean on them. Um, some of the best coaches I've worked with, and then also just my parents, coming. If I had a stressful day at work, I mean, not work. If I had a stressful day at school, I was able to come to them, and they were just my biggest support. So yeah.
I'm sure it feels like work sometimes, right? That being said, what did you enjoy most about your 2 years at Maranatha, and what did you learn being a part of that program that helped you at Minnetonka?
Yeah. Yeah, I was definitely say just the connections I made with those girls. I still talk to them to this day. Just being able to be in tough situations like that, like those, and come together and say, arguing with each other, saying who's right, who's wrong, just being able to come together. Really, I brought that over to Tonka, and I'm grateful for MCA for helping me with that.
And let's be honest, you would probably win 90% of those arguments anyway, right? ITs, of course, covering her at Maranatha and Minnetonka. For those of you who don't know, I've seen Desiree a few times, and I have never seen any animosity amongst her teammates. I remember how much she welcomed Emma Dasovich as an eighth grader, but the two of you have that connection. It's like, hey, I know what it's like to play as an eighth grader. And if you don't mind, Desiree, what was that first season on varsity like, going in as an eighth grader? We see that more often in the private schools, but it can still be daunting for someone like yourself going in at 13, 14 years old, and you're playing alongside and against some more experienced competition.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, obviously I was nervous, because I'm playing against some really good girls. But I was just, trying not to be too nervous and just be myself and just play. Um, just trying to attack when I can and just play defense when I can.
Well, if the numbers are any indication, you do those things quite well. And you mentioned having a connection with Leah Dasovich before you joined Minnetonka, going back to your parents. So when did that connection start, and how did that play a role in you joining the Skippers?
Yeah. Yeah. So my dad was an assistant coach for Tom Das. So I was able to go to the guys' games and stuff. So um, I was able to see Das and also Emma Das. So I was able to build that connection with them. And ever since I met him, I love them. They're great people.
So what did Leah have to say when you told her that, hey, I'm going to be coming to play for your team now?
I think she was excited. Yeah. No, yeah. You can see a smile on her face.
Well, on the flip side, of course, making the switch, it's always exciting when you start, but it also means you have to make some tough choices to get there. How hard was it to leave Maranatha after a solid eighth grade season? I remember Latoya and I covered you for a couple of games, and we're thinking, hey, this Maranatha team might have a new nucleus to work with. Obviously, you carried that over to Minnetonka, but how hard was it to leave with how much respect and respect and generosity, just your attitude toward that school remains positive.
Mhm.
I have to imagine that didn't make it easy for you to make such a big move.
Right. No, yeah. Just the relationships I built with the teachers, the staff, even the my teammates. It was pretty hard to leave. Just because you started from the bottom. I started with the bottom and then I'm building up. And I was just thankful that they were able to like get me to the player I am now. So I really do appreciate um, MCA, and then even the players I grew up playing with those years.
So when you made the move to Minnetonka, what was that first game like?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, for me, I was like, I don't really know what to expect because I never experienced playing in the league conference. Um, but it was pretty intense. Just like I kind of known like going into the games it wasn't gonna be easy. Like it wasn't just gonna be handed to me, handed to us, my team and I. But I mean, I was surprised, but I also had fun. I mean, just competing with these ladies is just pretty fun. Win or lose, it's always going to be a competition.
Well, I remember when you made the move, and Leah told me at the Apple Valley game, the one I covered a couple seasons ago, that she was having to work with a renewed core or a refit team because a couple of years earlier they won the state championship, upsetting Hopkins after they finally got out of the same section Hopkins was in. But they did it with a couple of D1 studs and Courtney Fredrickson and Lizzie Odegaard, and they had a few more. Kayla Mershon, Megan Walker. I think Mershon transferred back to Minnesota. So that Minnetonka team that won state was a solid group.
Right.
You're coming in as part of a team that is having to build their way back up. And much like Maranatha, when they won their state championships, you were at schools that had some history, had a pedigree. In the case of Minnetonka, they were still in the wake of their first state championship in girls basketball. How do you see yourself? I guess, how did you see yourself fitting into this newfound setting?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was just trying to come in just to play really. And then I was able to build those relationship with the teammates. But I was just gonna take my role and lead with my other players. I wasn't the oldest. We had a couple seniors, so juniors and seniors, so I was able to listen to them, because they've been through the game like situation. So I was able to feed off of them and then just um, try to lead in the best the way I could.
And what would you make of the differences in atmosphere? Because at Maranatha, as you know, small gym, just one set of bleachers, and most of the schools you play in that conference, it's a smaller, more intimate venue. Then you go to Minnetonka in the Lake Conference, And most of the time, if not all the time, you're playing in big gymnasiums. And as we've seen the last couple of years, anytime you get Hopkins on the schedule, fans will follow. And I think that it's going to stay that way when fans are allowed to attend games again. How did you handle that, going from this small school, really close-knit setting to playing in gyms that could could double for small colleges, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, like you said, like MCA, we had fans, obviously. People supported us. Our set of bleachers would be packed. But then the transfer over, like the games were packed and it was like so many fans everywhere you looked. And it was just the atmosphere was great though. Whether the people were against you or cheering for you, it was I liked the atmosphere, just being around all those people.
How do you think your 2 years at Minnetonka so far have helped you develop as a player, where you have to go up against the likes of Paige Beckers and Mara Braun and Jenna Johnson, uh, Tessa Johnson, I believe, at St. Michael Albertville now, Eden Prairie with a Gophers commit, Nia Holloway. There are a lot of good players out there. How do you think that has helped you grow?
Right. No, yeah, just competing against all these good players, it just helps me, like my leadership, forever down, being able to like keep the team together, not getting too frustrated, and just trying to my competition, like being able to compete. That's also grown. And just skill wise, being able to, get different shots off against different talented defensive players. That's also grew. So I feel like playing against these awesome players are just makes me a better player also.
On the subject of leadership, that's something you portray as the point guard, at least the last couple of years. We'll see what happens. Well, I think there's plenty of room for you and Keani Lockett, but you're coming in and having to lead this team of young guns where, Leah was saying, yeah, we might take some hits early, but I was excited to work with this group because I get to watch them grow, compared to the state tournament teams where there already was that potential. And I want to be clear that there's no team that Leah doesn't enjoy coaching. She loved having the odd couple of Courtney Fredrickson and Lizzie Odegaard, and she's just as appreciative of what you've been able to do with what Emma did as an eighth grader, starting and holding her own. And now she gets to add a couple of state tournament veterans to the group. But for you, how did your leadership skills evolve, having to run point with this young team against high level competition?
Right. Yeah, no. It was basically just telling myself like if I make a mistake, who cares? Just move on. My team got me. If we were down, just positive face, keep the same energy as if we started the game. And just being able to like no down talk really. I mean, it's a game of runs. You go on runs, the other team goes on runs, and just be able to, keep the same attitude how I started it and just have my team help me. So yeah.
In the sport of basketball, and you can take this any direction you like, who were the people or players you looked up to, that you idolized growing up?
Yeah. Basically just the WNBA really. I mean, just taking moves from different players and just trying to build that into my practice skills, see if I can master one move and then the next, and then just like how you can see how they play and compete just watching them. It's pretty great. Yeah, I mean, just being able to look at older people, they've been through what I've been through already, and seeing how much they have grown and the different moves they're able to put in, and then also their leadership on and off the court, like see them on the bench, they're still cheering and stuff like that. So yeah.
So, a WNBA fan, do you have any specific players or teams that you cheer on?
Probably the Lynx. But I mean, I watch a lot of teams. I don't know if I have a favorite, but just being able to watch different teams and like see them compete and just have fun. That's pretty huge to me.
So, I take it you hit up a few games during the summer when they don't overlap with AAU?
Yeah, we tried to.
Well, and the Lynx, going with the local choice. Of course, there are no wrong answers, but I'm always curious because sometimes you get some answers you don't expect. But you and the Holloways, I know, are big WNBA fans, and I was looking at some of the notes from the breakdown books. Emma Dasovich is another one who says she watches the NBA and WNBA to learn a few things, get some inspiration. And it's interesting that you don't have a specific player. A lot of guests that I've had on this podcast series, or when I do all-star events, I'll ask them who their favorite player is, and they usually can find someone. But in
Yeah.
your case, you're like, yeah, I don't have one. Why is that?
I mean, because they're all great. I mean, really just being able to watch them like, oh yeah, that's a good move, or look at that leadership. Just being able to, I mean, they're all like one. So it's like, I just like watching them all. And they all bring different skills to their game, their team, their style of play. So I love that.
Well, if someone ever asked you the question, what skill or what element would you take from someone else? I have a feeling you would have a tough time answering that question, because
I was just gonna say all of them.
that's what Diana Taurasi said, I think a few years ago when they did a 20th anniversary gathering or roundtable. Diana Taurasi said, yeah, I would take everything from, I think it was Maya Moore or somebody.
Yeah.
But it speaks to who Diana, of course, is as a player, but I think it speaks to, yeah, all the stories. And it's an interesting answer. It might sound like a cop-out, but realistically, especially for the players that have long careers, and even if you don't, there are a lot of stories that are just waiting to be told from the players who make the field. One that comes to mind, Jackie Jamelos, who went through 5 ACL surgeries and was able to get a professional offer. I know the Lynx drafted her, and then she was able to make her way to the Phoenix Mercury, I think, this season. Anyone else, who knows, with all of the beating and banging she took to her knees. But that's just one example of the types of stories that you get to learn or hear about. And so I can understand your answer that, hey, I root for everybody, because
Yeah.
you never know who the next surprise would be. Yes, we love to talk about the Maya Moores and the Candace Parkers. One of my favorite moments was being on hand to cover Maya Moore's game-winning three-pointer in the 2015 finals in person. I was in Indiana when that happened, and I'll never forget the look on my face when that happened, because you're like, are you serious? But I could say that about you, that St. Louis Park game where you ran out of bounds and made your way back in, got the drive for the layup. It's like, well, I could tell she's got an IQ, or I could tell her IQ was up there. So that is an interesting answer. Who knows? Maybe you'll get to add your name to that list in a few years.
Who knows?
And while I'm sure that would be a goal of yours, I think let's try to get through high school first, right?
Right. Let's get through high school first.
What have you enjoyed most about playing for Minnetonka, even though you haven't been able to get to the state tournament yet? As we said before, you go up against some tough competition in the section. You had Chaska last year and Eden Prairie, I should say. It was Eden Prairie who knocked you out last year, but Chaska is another tough team with a Minnesota commit and Mallory Heyer. Shakopee played well, even though they graduated a lot of their state tournament team from a couple of years ago. They found ways to get big wins. You're in that mix. So it hasn't been easy, but it sounds like you've had a lot of fun along the way. So what have you enjoyed most about your 2 years with the Skippers?
Yeah, really just growing since freshman year till now. You can see like how much we've grown on and off the court, and just like building those relationships. Like we know when that person's gonna cut, what kind of shot they're looking for, and then that just brings excitement to me. Because I mean, just playing against all these good players. I mean, everybody's talented, has different skills, different moves, and just being able to play against them. Watching them grow as well. And every game is a challenge. So it's like just being able to get better with my team is just what I've enjoyed the most, really.
And Minnetonka knocks one down.
And as I'm pulling up some of these figures here, you did pick up a few big wins last season kind of inched a little bit closer. You were able to get a season split with Eden Prairie, a team that made it to the state tournament. You got to win against Lakeville North, another team that reached the big dance. So even though you didn't win all the time, you had a couple of quality wins that illustrated your potential. And that's why I always said, Minnetonka, they're one of those teams on the rise again. So the Lake Conference not to be underestimated. What did you enjoy most about that growth where you brought back everybody and you got to see it play out in the results?
Right. Yeah, no. Just like the positive talk between players too. How you can see from game one, freshman year to now, how different players lead in different ways and how every player like has a reason to be on the team. Like we're just growing and being able to have tough conversations when we're down, but still be in a positive mood. So those things you can just tell have really grown since game one to now with this team.
Well, before you even played a game in your junior season, you did something that a lot of your fellow classmates have done in the 2022 class, and that is place a verbal commitment to a college. Mallory Heyer, Nia Holloway, of course, have done that. Mara Braun recently did so. All three are going to Minnesota. Back in the fall, you announced that you were going to play for Alabama-Birmingham. So what led you to make that commitment before you've even had a chance to play your junior season?
Yeah. I mean, I was in love with their coaching staff and just watching them play, even now and even before watching their games. I could just see myself there. Beautiful campus. And I just enjoyed myself when I was there and able to build those relationships over the phone, Zoom calls like this. Just building that relationship really felt like I could be there, see myself there.
How many offers did you get? And do you recall when you got your first college offer?
I think I had about like 22 offers. And then I think it was 8th grade. I think that's when I got my first one.
So your first year on varsity and you got a college offer back then?
Yeah, I know. I'm extremely blessed. Even just for getting one, like really just having coaches believe in me, it's really huge. Means a lot.
Well, you kind of answered the question I was going to ask you because I didn't pose it to suggest that you didn't deserve it. But I'm thinking for you, what did that signal getting an offer your first season on varsity? And you had some experience with the traveling leagues, the youth league. So it wasn't like you were jumping in, coming out of nowhere. But to get an offer at such an early age when you're still trying to make sense of everything, I have to imagine that was a big moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot to take in. So I was able to, just express my feelings with my family and stuff. But it just really meant a lot. Like the work I've done is paying off. And it just made me happy and love the game even more.
Yeah, that being said, not a lot of Minnesota recruits go down to UAB or that part of the country. What excites you about taking on that challenge and going to a school that I think for a time was on the verge of closing, or at least I think it was maybe just football, but UAB, they've been in the news for some not so great things, but you'll have a chance to maybe get them some headlines or some press with what you can do for basketball. What excites you about getting that opportunity to play at the Division I level?
Yeah, really just competing against like awesome players, people who worked really hard, and just being able to go somewhere new and play. I'm just really excited.
Well, if there's one perk, you won't have to worry about blizzards before Christmas or
Yes.
blizzards in April.
Yes, the weather. That's going to be a change for sure.
A little bit warmer, so you might have to keep those long socks at home.
Yeah, I'll keep them here.
Now, heading into this season, we'll see what happens. I've looked at schedules, so we're looking at starting on the 14th. hopefully wrapping up mid-March, hopefully having a state tournament. But honestly, I don't think anyone knows what to expect right now. As we stated earlier, you're going to have a couple of new players join you in Kiani Lockett and Nora Francois from De La Salle. And you have the experience of transferring from a private school to a public school. In Kiani's case, she started at South, went to De La Salle, and now going back to a public school setting. And Nora Francois doing the same thing. What have the conversations been like between you and those two? And how do you think your experience making that move, going from private to public, can help them get acclimated?
Right. Really, I mean, I've never played with them. So like this fall league, the breakdown games we were able to have, it was really, I mean, it was amazing playing with them. They're great players, really talented. And I mean, we've even talked about it. I'm just transferring schools to a bigger school. It can be a little overwhelming, but you know, just taking it day by day, and just enjoying the game. And then also just they love competing too. So I was able to have them on my team and not play against them like for AAU or something. So just being able to compete with them instead of against them is pretty nice.
Well, I'm glad to see both of them continuing their journey. I know Kiani got a lot of hype this last season, being the point guard at De La Salle and coming off an ACL tear she had a couple of years ago to win state and then have a sensational sophomore season. And Nora's story, I'm glad to see her back out there playing because I thought she was De La Salle's best all-around player. Well, now you get to work with that all-around talent for a season. What excites you about adding those two to the mix?
Right. Just their different skills, really. Attacking, leadership on and off the court. Just the energy they bring. Even in the practices we had, you know, for fall league and stuff, you could tell like it was a lot of energy. It was very hyped. It was a lot of competitive work. Playing against them for like 2-on-2s or 4-on-4, stuff like that. It was just fun. I'm excited for the season to start so we can just connect and just even more with these with Kiani and Nora. So super excited.
Based on your experience in fall league, who do you think will be the one and who do you think will be the two? Or do you see yourself and Kiani switching it up when you get out there?
Yeah. Really, either works. We switch off here and there. She brings up the ball. Just being able to just to play in either spot works for both of us. She's a great one. She's a great two, all around great player. So yeah, just super excited to play with her.
So there won't be any point guard controversy at Minnetonka is what you're telling me.
Yeah, no, I think we're a great fit. So she brings up the ball, I bring up the ball, just get the offense flowing and ready to go to attack.
Well, good to know there won't be any internal rivalries brewing with the skippers. As I said, actually, I think that's going to make it even more fun now because think of all the possibilities. On that note, since you had a chance to play with them in fall league, what was your first impression of them as teammates?
Yeah, just playing with them, it was like, wow, like they're not like playing against me. It was just like, you know, it was a new experience just because I never played with them. So it was like I didn't really know what to expect, but I knew that they were great players coming in. So it was more of excitement. I was just ready to go. They fit in perfectly, so it's really nice to have them.
Knowing all of the uncertainty surrounding this winter season, everyone's excited to start, but my thought is I'm sure we'll be able to get this started. I have no idea if we'll finish. So knowing that each game could potentially be your last with what we're dealing with, how does that impact your approach to this upcoming season?
Right. Really just being grateful for every game we get, every practice we get, because we never know when things will shut down or if they're going to be back to how they were. So really just going into the game and practices like locked in, focused, ready to go and ready to compete. And obviously have fun.
And what would you say has been the hardest part about navigating this pandemic, and how has that helped you grow as an athlete and a person?
Yeah. Just really knowing that everybody's trying to compete and be the best. So just making sure when I'm working out, I do my hardest and just compete during workouts and practices. So I'm ready for those game situations.
Now, you have a noticeable or notable distinction at Minnetonka that began, well, technically at Providence Academy, because I don't know if Maranatha had their own track team.
Mhm.
But at the larger schools, you don't see as many crossover athletes. That's not to say they're not out there. I know a lot of folks who take up a second sport. Basketball and track is a popular crossover. Volleyball and basketball is another. But at a larger school like Minnetonka, it can be more difficult because you're having to compete against a larger pool of athletes. But no matter what happens in basketball, you will always have a state championship to your credit. And that came in the 4x200 relay in 2019. Even though track isn't your primary sport, how does that help you stay in shape?
Yeah. Really just like being able to stop and go. Because the practices are very different from basketball. But just being able to be that helps me with conditioning for AAU. And then just being able to stay conditioned really. But I've met a lot of nice people, talented, fast runners during track since I've become a skipper. So it's pretty exciting just competing with them.
And I understand you do the sprint events for the Minnetonka track team.
Correct. Yeah.
So 100, 200, I'm guessing. Do you take part in the 400?
So I do the 2 and the 4 and then the relays for those.
The 2 and the 4? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of short distance runners usually do the 1 or the 2. And speaking as someone who isn't the most knowledgeable track and field fan out there, I enjoy watching it, but there's only so many sports that I can cover because there's just one of me.
Yeah.
So you do the 2 and the 400. Why not the 100?
Yeah. I don't know. I just like the 2 and the 4 more than I do the 100. I've ran it before, but I just prefer to run the 2 and the 4. But yeah.
If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me. There are no wrong answers on this podcast series, but I ask because there probably are some track fans and some casual fans of you out there who might say you're crazy for relishing the 400, which I understand is one of the toughest races because it's a short race, but you need the endurance to make it a full lap without giving out, without hitting that proverbial wall.
Yeah.
So some folks might think you'd be crazy to do the 2 and 400, but you enjoy it. How do you prepare yourself? The 200, obviously you don't want to take that lightly, and you certainly haven't, but the 400, as tough as that is, how do you keep yourself together so you can keep running that event without getting winded?
Right. Really, it's a mental game, especially for the 400. And then also practices are based off of those. So you kind of do more conditioning if you're doing the 400 and stuff to prepare. But really, it's a mental. It's like you're telling yourself it's a full lap. You might not necessarily want to do it, but I mean, it's just a lot of mental. So I just kind of a lot of positive talk before the gun goes off, after, when I'm at the 200 mark, just telling myself I got this and got to push through.
Well, from my experiences or memories, I've watched those 400-meter races at the Olympics, and it is the most grueling, I would think. The distance runs, of course, also take a toll, but the 400, you just see the athletes, they go at it so hard that they need a minute to collect themselves. What is the hardest part about running that 400 event?
Yeah. Really, I would say, I mean, probably the last 200, really. It's a lot of like, that's when the mental really starts getting, your legs start to get tired and you're starting to like gasp for air. But it's like you're halfway there. And then as you know, you can start to see when you curve in other people. So you're like, got to stay in front, got to go. So that's probably the hardest part of that race. And then that final kick of the 100, you can see everybody usually neck and neck, and you just try to go. Try not to save anything.
Well, if your state championship, or I guess, yeah, state championship's the right way to put it, because I was going to say tournament. I'm like, but they don't have a tournament in track the way they do it in basketball. But if that's any indication, I don't think you have to worry about getting winded or passing out before you get to the finish line. But take us back to that state championship relay race you ran, the 4x200. What do you recall from that day, meeting up at Hamlet, and when your team crossed the finish line first, how exciting was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was super exciting. The weather was nice that day. It was just, we were just warming up, and I was like, guys, let's do this. I mean, my team was great. It was super fun too. Just that moment was super amazing, just to run with them. And then as soon as I handed the baton off to Faith, I just knew we were going to win. She blasted out of there. So it was super fun. It was super fun.
So what leg do you run in the relay races usually?
Yes, it usually depends. Sometimes the 4. I mean, it really doesn't matter for me. We usually switch off the 3rd, also 3rd and 4th, and then yeah.
So you're usually one of the closers, or in that 3rd leg, if I recall. Well, no, 4x200, everyone's got to do one straight and one turn.
Right. Yep. So those ones, it's just everybody, get out and go. Try to beat the person in front of you.
And for you, I'm guessing you hope to continue competing in track if we have a season, but even though you've locked in your college commitment for basketball and that is the sport you are looking to move forward in, what keeps you coming back to the track?
Yeah, it's really just the people. I meet so many different runners, even when we're in the blocks. Hey, we just make those relationships, and I just like meeting new people, building those bonds, even if they go to different schools.
And how would you say that translates to basketball, being the sprinter that you are? And I guess a long sprinter would be the best way to put it, since you compete in the 400. Yeah. But how does that carry over?
Yeah. Really just like I keep saying, track is a lot of solo unless you do relays. So for me, the relays really helps my leadership, looking up to the captains that we had, being able to just it's a lot of mental. So bring that mental to the basketball game when we're down, if we're, trying to keep our lead up and stuff like that. So the mental, and the leadership I bring over from sport to sport.
And no matter what happens, you'll always have a state championship as a result. I know a lot of athletes who competed in sports outside the primary ones and picked up state championships that way.
Yeah.
So you get to be part of that list. And I was looking at some of the history with Minnetonka. The year you won, actually 2 of your teams emerged victorious, because another relay team, the 4x800, also won a state championship the last year we had a meet. So if we get to do it again, like I said, I don't know how repeats work, but I think just getting an opportunity to run again would be exciting for you, considering everything that's happened.
Right. Exactly.
Throughout your athletic career, and you can interpret this any way you see fit, but what would you say has been the most exciting moment so far and the most embarrassing moment?
Yeah. I don't know. Exciting, probably just winning my first conference game. Or really just winning and competing against the lake conference. It's like every game is a challenge, and it brings so much excitement. Even halftime, you're like, guys, we got another half in us. We gotta go. That excitement, that rush. That's probably the most exciting and embarrassing. I don't know. I have a lot of embarrassing moments, especially at practice. My team makes fun of me all the time. It's super funny. But really just, I don't know. I can't pinpoint one. I have a lot of embarrassing moments. If that's fallen during practice even for track practice, I've done that multiple times. Or just like bobbling the ball in practice. I'm slipping on my own 2 feet. So I have a lot of moments.
A lot of moments, and it seems like a lot of one-liners from your teammates as a result.
Yes.
What are some, I guess, moments or like a quip or a one-liner that stands out? Because as you said, and that sounds like with basketball, I think you're going to do a lot of things that you wish you hadn't done or just silly moments as you continue to grow. But what was something that you won't forget or you guys have a laugh about when you reflect on it?
Yeah. Really just, it's just, we all come together and literally just laugh about some of the craziest stuff. It'd be like, oh, remember that time I fell, you fell over our own 2 feet and stuff like that. We just laugh over nothing sometimes. So it's kind of funny, but I love them. So it never gets old.
Well, and you spoke of winning your first conference game after moving to Minnetonka. And if you're wondering why is that such a big deal, her first season, if I'm correct, you guys got shut out in conference play. So you had to wait an entire year to register your first conference win, which you were able to do, the late conference being a little smaller. So they don't start until January with the conference games. But if my research is correct, you finally got that first one against Edina, and you were on the cusp. You played EP close your last game as a freshman, but what was gratifying about that moment going 0-8 the previous year? And say what you will about Edina, a win is a win no matter who it comes against, but to finally register that first conference win since you joined the school, I guess, why does that moment stand out for you?
Yeah. Really just knowing that we could do so much better. And no shade on the other teams. Those are great teams. Just knowing that we have more in us to compete. And so that moment was very exciting. We went through a lot of losses, and then we were able to refresh, come as a team, just build each other up, and then have DAS and the assistant coaches there to help us. So that moment was very exciting.
And if you don't mind, we are talking about how you have some experience to help the newcomers in Keani Lockett and Nora Francois. You also have that experience with Emma, who came on as an 8th grader. The one difference was she made her way into the starting rotation, but you were a solid contributor off the bench at Maranatha. But I imagine the two of you have known each other for a long time, but when she got the call up and said, all right, you're going to play varsity with some of the older, bigger girls now, well, 6'1", I guess she is one of the bigger ones, but you get my point. How did you help her get acclimated? She's coming in as an 8th grader. You did the same thing. So you have that in common.
Right. Just really telling her I'm always there for her. Do a bad practice, bad game, good practice, good game. Just really telling her I'm always there. And just telling her to compete, doing things she loves to do. Emma's a really great player on and off the court. We built a really good relationship. I love her. Just knowing that, telling her I'm always there for her if she ever wants to talk or just play one-on-one or something. Just telling her to keep competing.
I'm sure you're looking forward to that competition in a couple of weeks. I'm curious, since you said you can't pinpoint one silly moment, I'm wondering what will happen this year. Will there be an embarrassing moment that makes it to the top of your list at some point, or do they just all run together?
I'm guessing there probably will be. I'm positive there will be a moment that I will remember this season. And I'm waiting for that day to come.
So maybe we should, about a year from now or before your senior season, we'll do another podcast, revisit and say, okay, Desiree, did you find another embarrassing moment to share with us?
Yes, I probably have one like right, like I know that day.
And if you're a newcomer to this podcast, I ask that question not to make fun of my guests, but just to remind them that, hey, we're all human and we do things that get us to laugh. And that's why I ask it, because it's nothing like embarrassing that they wouldn't want to share. But yeah, silly moments where you falling or something that would lead your teammates to respond in a way that creates a running joke, kind of like whose line is it anyway? How many times have their screw ups turned into running jokes? If you don't mind, Desiree, there were some other things I wanted to explore with you. From my experience and research, you seem to be quite the foodie.
Yeah.
You have a real fascination with food, because your favorite food is French fries. And if I remember, the waffle fries are your top pick. But
Yep.
something else I learned about you this year is that you like to put ketchup on your eggs.
Yes. A lot of my friends think I'm crazy.
And I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, I've seen people put ketchup on eggs. Maybe it's not the most common combination, but folks think you're crazy. So is it scrambled eggs or fried eggs, or how do you
Definitely
put
scrambled.
okay, well, so
Yeah.
to me that makes sense. Like ketchup and scrambled eggs, that's a combination I've seen. But
Right.
I'm wondering, going off of that, because that was an answer to a question you wrote in the breakdown book, what are some hobbies or interests or activities, things that you do that others wouldn't necessarily know about if they met you for the first time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I do like to sing, but I'm not good. But my teammates also make fun of me for that too. I sing all the time at practice. Um but I wouldn't probably do it in like in front of a big crowd because I'm not the best. I just do it for jokes, just because. Also dancing too. I'd probably say I'm probably one of the best dancers on my team. My teammates don't like to admit that, but I'm probably one of the best. And then also really just hanging out with my friends. I love to do that, and then just spending time with my fam.
So if you're the best dancer on the Minnetonka team, who would you say is the best singer?
Probably me.
But you just said you weren't that good.
I know, but I think I'm good. They just don't think I'm that good. So it's a little. I'm like, guys, just give me a chance.
All right. Well, you know what? We're gonna have to settle this with some kind of dance off or sing off after a practice or after a game.
Yeah.
If Leah or anyone else from Minnetonka is watching this, and I know I'm friends with some of the newcomers as well, at least their parents anyway, we might have to arrange that, find out who the best dancer or singer is, and then we'll put it
Yeah,
up to a vote. You got what, 3,000 students, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sort it out.
Yeah. That would be exciting.
But what you're saying is we shouldn't expect you to start a professional singing career.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Where do you see yourself, though, as you prepare for that transition to college in a couple of years? And it's not something where, if you don't have an answer, that's fine, but just some thoughts, like where do you see yourself as you continue to grow and evolve and present yourself as an outstanding athlete and an outstanding citizen?
Yeah. Really just growing as a person. Like for basketball, but even like education wise, and just like being able to um, um, explore the world, meet new people, just really just being able to just do new things in life and just be happy.
That being said, what would be your dream job?
Yeah. Probably a lawyer. Um, yeah.
Well, I've got some friends who have a law background who might be able to help get you started, but you've got a ways to go, so no pressure just yet. But speaking of growing as an athlete, as a student, as a citizen, how would you say you have grown, evolved? How would you say you have developed and presented yourself as a leader and a role model. I don't know what kind of reaction you get from the community, but I know when you were at Maranatha and what you've done at Minnetonka, a lot of folks that I know of, when they speak of you, they speak highly of you. And you've got the following. You've got a following. I don't know how big it is. It's not like I measure it, but there are a lot of folks out there rooting for you. What does that say about what you have done to get to this point?
Yeah, really just being able to like meet new people and just build those relationships with people. I love doing that. And just connecting with those people. And then also the support I've got and I have really helps too. So yeah, just being able to meet new people, compete against new people, and just enjoy life.
There is something I did want to address after our conversation, since you said you like putting ketchup on eggs. Do you also like putting ketchup on your French fries?
Yeah, but I prefer ranch. Yeah.
You prefer ranch with your fries, okay?
Yeah.
I'm a little different. Over the last year or so, I actually like mixing up sauces. So sometimes I'll go with buffalo ranch or barbecue ranch.
Okay.
I don't like just one sauce now, because ranch for me is maybe a little too bland. But if you put in a little buffalo or barbecue and mix that up, like, okay, now you got my attention. And I'll never forget when you said the Chick-fil-A fries stand out most. I'm like, have you sampled fries elsewhere
Yeah.
and just reached that conclusion that Chick-fil-A was the best? Because I found that amusing that you had a top restaurant already in mind when it came to that.
I mean, a lot of places have good fries. Like McDonald's fries are kind of good. The State Fair fries are really good. But I think it's the sauce maybe for Chick-fil-A that really makes the fries better. So I think that's leading it.
I smell a follow-up of some sort whenever it's safe to gather again. We could do this dance-off, sing-off with the team, and then we could have you go out and sample fries, and you can give us your reactions.
Yeah.
It's probably not the greatest health food in terms of staying in shape for basketball, but you know what? It's okay to indulge yourself once in a while. Let me ask you this. How excited are you going to be in a couple of years to go to UAB and finally get away from me?
Oh my gosh. I'm very excited to go play. Not necessarily leave. Oh my gosh.
I had a feeling you would react that way. As you probably have gotten to know over the years, I know you watch my broadcast because you're one of the folks who ask me, when am I going to see the tape? You're not the only one, but I like to poke fun at myself in that sense. But hey, if UAB has an opening, let them know. I'd be happy to go down there and go down south, because I'm not going to lie, the April blizzards, I've been a Minnesota guy my whole life, but the April blizzards are a little much as a guy who works in Major League Baseball. So
yeah,
the last couple of years, because I didn't get to work last year, but the past 2 years, I've had at least one game postponed because of snow. And I'm going, why? Like,
yeah, that's
what
Minnesota
am I doing
for
here? Well, at least the last few years, there was a time I remember when we had 80 degrees in St. Patrick's Day, and now we're like snow in April. What am I doing here?
Yeah, right.
For anyone out there who's thinking about getting into sports, whether it's track or basketball, what would you tell them, if they're nervous or worried about what's going to happen when they put themselves out there?
Yeah, really just play. Just be yourself. Do what you love to do and compete, really. And just do what you love to do. Have fun also. Have fun doing it.
Have you ever wondered, as we get ready to close this, how things might have gone if you had stayed at Maranatha? And as you said, you enjoyed that school, and that's not to say there was any bad blood, but because you made a big move, it worked out, of course. But are there moments where you go back, or do you try to keep looking forward?
Really, yeah. I mean, I thought about it, like, oh, what if I've stayed? What would have happened? But I think my move was really good. And I'm glad I'm here, um, just being coached by a really good coach. But yeah, I do. I am thankful for MCA, obviously. So yeah.
And if there's anything I take away from this specific podcast, Desiree, it's that respect you have. And I always say when an athlete makes a move in high school or college, it's their choice to make. And it's one of those tools that will help them grow because going back to a line from Coach Carter, part of growing up is making decisions and learning to live with the consequences. That being said, not every consequence is negative. In your case, they turn out positive. But what I appreciate most is the respect that you have from your time at Maranatha, how that helped you prepare for Minnetonka, where other students, and again, everyone has their own reasons, but others, they feel burned out or they get jaded. You know what I'm talking about. And they make that move just to get a restart, but they're coming from a position of negativity and I'm not implying that it's negativity of their own doing, but they're trying to bounce back and trying to get rid of those distractions. In your case, you just had the connection or a prior one with the Dasovich family and wanted to continue building on that. And I would say you've done that quite well as the point guard for Minnetonka. And who knows what would have happened if you had stayed at Maranatha, but we know this much. If you hadn't made that move, you wouldn't get to play alongside Keani Lockett and Nora Francois this year.
True. Yeah, I'm just very thankful and blessed, and then just excited to play with Keani and Nora. And the rest of my teammates, obviously, love those guys. So just super excited.
I was going to say, let's not forget about the teammates that are coming back.
Don't forget about my other teammates that I had.
Because they're pretty good too. But something I want my viewers to understand, and you are a brilliant example of this, is that it's possible to make a move and still respect and maintain positive relationships with the people that you worked with, you played alongside with at your former school. So, it is possible to, keep up those good relationships that you built. As we said at the start, it's not easy to make that move at such a young age, but it worked out, and hopefully I'll get a chance to cover your games this season, Desiree. We'll see what happens, but you were one of a few athletes before the season started who asked me, are you going to come to our games? And before we go, Desiree, I want you to understand that even if players and coaches don't ask me specifically, there are at least 3 or 4 dozen, I'd say about 50, that all want me to cover their games. So when you ask me that question, I'm like, you bet I want to be there. But the Hopkins coaching staff has enjoyed their staff has enjoyed me there, and Eden Prairie and St. Michael Albertville, Becker. I could run down the list, and yeah. I'm going.
You're great.
That's my problem. So trust me, I want to be there, and I'll do my best to get myself to a game. But if not, there are some other ways I can make sure we don't forget about you at Minnetonka, because I've enjoyed covering those games and sharing those moments. And after what happened last year with the St. Louis Park game, I won't get to do it this winter because of the late start, but next year I'm like, I'm going to have to find a new sweater, because now that your coach was enamored by that ugly Christmas sweater I wore last year, I'm like, okay, I got to keep that game fresh.
Gotta find a new one.
Well, or like, how do I, not so much a new one, but how do I top it?
Yeah.
But that's what I enjoy most, is hanging around and getting to meet all these people. I'm sure her daughter remembers watching some of my games before she was eligible to join, and now I'm covering her, and I'm guessing you were the same way, because I've been doing this for 15 years now, and seeing all these athletes who watched me when they were little on YouTube. And I don't know if you followed that path, but it does touch my heart a little bit when folks like yourself ask me, are you going to come to our games?
Mm-hmm.
As hard as it is, because in my head, I'm like, all right, how do I fit this school into the mix now? But that means a lot. So I appreciate the support, and I'm appreciative of the support you give to Minnetonka and the respect that you give to everyone that has played a part in your journey. So I wanted you to hear that from me.
Thank
and
you. Also, you're great too. So everybody wants you everywhere.
Yeah, I'm going to have to clone myself, or I'm going to have to find another crew or commentator to cover some games, because the last couple of years, the hardest part for me is on game days, there isn't one good game. There's usually 3 or 4 that I want to take part in, but I just tell myself, hey, whatever game you're at, you're there for a reason.
Right.
And if it, now I know what your favorite fries are. So once you become a pro athlete, maybe you can get that Chick-fil-A endorsement, or maybe you can be part of that movement that normalizes ketchup on eggs.
Yes.
But no matter what, thanks for coming on, Desiree. I can tell you have a lot of skills and a lot of talents and interests, and I can't wait to see how they unfold. Maybe I'm giving UAB some material to work with, so just be careful. They might ask you to follow up with your ketchup on eggs or fries. You know what? I could see them coming together too. That'd be quite the brunch, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be like, if you want to make my day, that would be the way to do it. But thanks for coming on, Desiree. And even if I can't cover you at a game, I wish you luck and safety, because I know you'll be going back out there while we're still dealing with this virus. So I just hope you can get to that finish line without any problems.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe you'll get an opportunity to play in-state in basketball. And if not, then hopefully get a chance to follow up on that gold medal you got for track. But
yeah,
you give us a lot of reasons to like you, and I'm glad you shared a few of those with us today.
Yeah. Thank you.
And if you'd like to be a guest on a future episode of this podcast, just hit us up on social media at the Mike Peden on Twitter or Instagram. All you need is a story, and we'd be happy to share it. So until next time, thanks for watching and enjoy 2021.